Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today. Hope you're all doing absolutely excellent. Today, we are gathering to talk about some pretty major Xbox news. The commitment to next generation is here, just when it feels like we're starting the current generation. But nonetheless, Xbox is talking about brand new hardware and what they are planning to do in the future. Also, settling some concerns that people were having with things like Xbox Play Anywhere and opening the door to conversations we can now have thanks to insider reports that were indicating this is where Xbox was headed, such as multiple storefronts, that they are now really firming up. So we're going to dive into a video presented by Xbox via Sarah Bond and AMD and discuss everything that happened in this very quick minute video, but that gave us much to talk about. So if you're new here and into what's going on with Xbox, consider subscribing and know that we will be all over this on Defining Duke and Xbox podcast. All right, so the gist of this is it's the announcement of a multi-year AMD partnership. This isn't too much of a surprise given Xbox has worked with AMD for a long while. And frankly, out of everything that's talked about in this video, this is what I cared the least about. Like, okay, hardware go boom, make my game run. Cool. I don't care. I just want to play the games, dude. Now, that is my extremely smooth brain take on things. How about something a little bit more intelligent? What I would say here is this is a different Xbox we're talking about now. And that's been obvious for a while, but I think a lot of people really associate that with the multi-platform push. What we're seeing here in the month of June is two public confirmations of third-party partnerships from Xbox. This is an AMD partnership. We saw an Asus partnership. And granted, these things leaked previously, so we've had a lot of time to process it, but now it's real. Now it's actually happening. This is, again, a very different Xbox from the one before who was trying to ride like PlayStation, ride like Nintendo. Here, we're seeing them go very Windows-oriented, and that probably means that the next box will have Windows on it, or at least a gaming-oriented version of Windows, kind of like what we'll talk about a little bit with the Xbox Ally. So with AMD, as they've discussed here, it's going to be about the chipset within the next generation console. What that does also tell you is it's actually going to be some type of box. I doubt it'll have a disk drive, but it'll actually be a box. This was another thing that was doubted with the way game streaming was going and xCloud was going. So it is going to be some type of box. So there's something to take out of this, actually. AMD, though, has had a lot of partnerships in the past, so we'll see how things work on the performance end for Xbox, because they have, again, gone on record of saying this will be like their most powerful system yet. But what they have committed to here are a number of things on both the hardware and software front. Let's start off on the software front, because with the Xbox Ally announcement, that was exciting for some Xbox fans. But as they started to hone in on PC games for Xbox, as in only that type of video game, it started to seem like the "this is an Xbox" marketing campaign felt like a bit of a miscommunication. No offense to Xbox, but who would have thought? You know, they are really well known for that. And so people were looking at their Play Anywhere section of their library and realizing, oh, interesting, like only 15% of my games would actually carry over this handheld. I'm good, y'all. Well, one thing Sarah Bond did confirm here is that existing games will carry over to the next generation. And again, this was obviously, I was not really afraid of Xbox not figuring this out, but many Xbox fans, like, we know after what happened last year, they panic. And I'm talking panic, like real anxiety. And so things like this don't feel like a sure bet, and Xbox has to step out and make sure they know, like, hey, it's all going to be good, don't you worry. And I don't mean to sound like I'm talking down, but I frame it this way because Xbox has been very open about the reason they feel they lost the generation versus the PlayStation 4 was because of the transition to digital libraries and how people really solidified that decision. If Xbox were to make you detach from that library again, I think that's shooting themselves in the foot a million times over. And if any other console manufacturer did that and said, hey, all that old library there, abandon that and start brand new, no one wants to do that. Like, people want to continue to build their libraries generation after generation. So I'm not surprised that Xbox seems to be confirming here they're going to find a way to make sure that, even going back to what looks like your 360 games, that these will work anywhere. How that happens, I'll be very interested to see, because as I predicted during our Xbox Showcase predictions video, I said that I think Xbox with 360 style games are just going to re-release them as modern SKUs, and that's the way they're going to bring them forward. So you're not going to get like Transformers Fall of Cybertron on the 360 SKU. You're going to buy a prettier version for $60. Welcome to the Xbox experience. Here we go. However, one thing that conflicts with what insider reports were saying is Xbox's commitment to the next generation and what way they're doing it. Sarah does say in this video, the next generation in your living room and in your hands. Now, this can be in reference to just the Xbox Ally, and in a lot of ways I think it is. but you have to go into some deeper reporting. Jez Corden of Windows Central Gaming said Xbox was just shelving their handheld plans and focusing on the Xbox Ally for the time being. Keyword here being shelving. We covered that in a video. Then, a little bit more than a week later, Tom Warren steps outside and says, actually, it's been canceled. They're not doing that handheld anymore here. So now we're getting the conflicting reports, but ultimately, it seems like Xbox is committing to some sort of handheld. At first, I was willing to bite on the cancellation aspect of the rumor, but just taking into account what the Xbox Ally is doing, it just doesn't make sense to me that Xbox would straight up abandon their own first-party handheld. So let me explain why. First and foremost, I think the proof will be in the pudding when it comes down to battery life and performance, but much of what bogged down the original ROG Ally or handhelds running Windows is actually offloaded in this new collaboration between the Xbox team, the Windows team, and the Asus team. So things like the taskbar, the desktop, background processes that eat up that precious RAM that could be used for games are now gone, offloaded, and this will reduce issues, even like pop-ups based on what I've read and impressions that I've watched. So instead of a desktop mode, like I hated when I opened my ROG Ally and I go, oh, there's the Windows desktop. Nice. Gamer time. Like I couldn't stand it, especially because you had to maneuver it with like a touch screen. It just felt awful. Instead, it boots to a full Xbox screen in compact mode, similar to what you'd find on the Xbox PC app in that mode. So what they described it as in terms of numbers is that Xbox has acquired an additional 2 gigabytes of memory that gets kicked back into the games because of what they've managed to do by offloading parts of Windows. And a lot of people have walked away with positive impressions. I did not have the opportunity to go to Summer Games Fest this year, so I didn't go hands-on with the handheld. But what I'm saying in a very long way here is the idea of a handheld being canceled when Xbox has put this much time into bringing Windows and Xbox together and finding a solution to this, only to put it on third-party hardware. If Xbox is truly going to go everywhere and do everything, I think that includes not just third-party hardware, but also their own stuff. And we've seen Xbox in the past kind of kick tires to feel things out and then take the full dive. And I think a more experimental Xbox fits the narrative here of like, how does this work with Asus? What feedback can we get with the Xbox Ally? And then going from there into their own first-party handheld and putting that out onto the market with much more feedback accounted for at the start of a new generation where people are really looking to put some serious coin down. The reality is when you look at the stats for even Steam Deck sales, handheld PCs are in a very niche spot. And when you compare them to the sales of even the Switch 2 so far, which you know how recently the Switch 2 came out. Yeah, like this is a small demographic. So Xbox is understandably treating this as an experimental area because to me, outside of Nintendo, the verdict is still out on who will be the true mainstream, like to your DS, your PSP. Like who's going to be the alternate that goes to those tens of millions of units sold. And I think it's going to come down to pricing, which we'll talk about in a little bit, how some rumors are floating around on the handheld. But I also think it's going to come down to things like this. How many libraries can I bring forward into this handheld? If I can buy a handheld sight unseen and I can get my Steam, my Xbox, Epic Game Store, GOG, and so on, I got like 500 games loaded into this thing day one. That's a pretty easy sale, especially if it's got good battery life and it runs games well. Easily done. The Game Post had reposted information from Xbox insider Xstasis, who gives a breakdown of what to expect with the Xbox Ally and Ally X and how it's going to launch and pre-order details, that sort of thing. So he's saying that pre-order details for both handhelds are going to open up this August. The launch is expected in October of this year, in the second half of the month. And the pricing for at least the US is the Xbox Ally at about $500 with the Ally X at about $800. And there will be demos planned for Gamescom 2025 with a public hands-on. I think in today's economy, I mean, naturally the Ally X is going to be what you want, but I think in today's economy, that's a pretty steep price. So I don't know how many people are going to bite on that in, again, a niche market, a niche item. When it comes to the Xbox Ally, however, I do think that might be in a good spot, again, depending on things like battery life. And when you look at where Steam Deck started, there's a reason why in this very niche market it has taken over, and it's because the Steam Deck had a really good low SKU option available to you. It wasn't the perfect option, but just that price range that they gave you, I think, worked really well for players. But anyway, this is a long conversation about handhelds, but since there was so much to it, I just wanted to unpack it. Ultimately, Xbox is committing to a new console and a new handheld, and I think that's welcome news. There was a lot of questions with this third-party multi-platform push, if Xbox would really commit to hardware, and especially when you start to see things like, oh, they're actually maybe internally canceling that handheld. Again, I was close to biting a little bit, looking at it thinking, it would make sense. Like, if their hardware is doing horrible quarter over quarter, why would they invest more? But I'm glad they're not giving up, because for a lot of people, the theory is, and I would agree, that SteamOS and the comparisons between that and Windows scared the hell out of them. Why would they keep pushing? But this is the beauty of competition. They should keep pushing, and I'm glad they're not bowing out here. Again, I think the Xbox Ally will tell us a lot when we get our hands on it. The key thing I'm looking at, like I think many of you, is battery life. How much have they offloaded Windows to make this thing last compared to, say, my Steam Deck OLED, which I adore. So we'll see in due time. But also, one thing that Xbox talked about here in this video is not being locked to a single store. This is something that Phil Spencer's gone on record of saying multiple times, seeing if they can get multiple stores onto Xbox. But committing to this collaboration publicly in multiple ways of the Windows team and the Xbox team working together, and also handhelds, consoles, and then saying just not a single store where you can access your Xbox games. This seems like there is a major step being made to publicly commit like this, where the hope, we don't know if it's guaranteed, the hope is that there is a Steam, there is an Epic Game Store, there is a GOG, someone who shows up on this Xbox storefront beyond the Xbox Store. That being said, though, I think the question is, and I don't have a great answer for you, is I don't know how Xbox makes money if, like, let's say this new version of Windows for gaming is running on my brand new next generation console, and I fire it up, and I'm playing, and I'm going to go to my Steam library and only buy Steam games on my Xbox hardware. Yes, Xbox got a one-time purchase out of me in the hardware department. If I'm, like, say, not a Game Pass subscriber for whatever reason, and I'm also not buying games on their Xbox store, is Xbox and in turn Microsoft really okay with the idea where they don't sell hardware? That's not their business strategy at all. They're a software company just getting money out of me for my hardware? Or are they just hoping that they'll get me in the door and then their software will pick me up? But if it doesn't, then they're okay with me buying Steam games? Like, and because then why would Valve ever cut in Xbox on that? Like, oh, you want us to be on your console, and so we're gonna take, like, you're gonna take 10% of every sale here? Sure, sounds good, dude. I'd be like, get the fuck out of here. I don't know. Why would I ever do that, right? Especially when you're someone like a Steam. So we'll see. I'm not gonna get too optimistic until we start to get a good idea of, like, is Xbox just okay with, like, yeah, buy your games here? Like, we're just really representing that. Are they making up the difference in other areas? Like, Game Pass makes X amount of dollars per month, and then selling games on PlayStation and Nintendo makes X amount of dollars per month, and so on and so forth. Like, is this just whole ecosystem? Like, they're not all tied to each other financially? I don't know. That makes it fun to talk about and cover Xbox, but the good news here is, simply put, they're committing to hardware, which I have to admit I had my doubts at certain points. So that's good to see. I'm happy that they're doing this. I'm happy they're not bowing out, because I think as much as people want Xbox to go, I don't think you want to leave this entire industry in the terms of hardware to PlayStation, who we're seeing how they're turning into Apple, and Nintendo, who we're seeing where they're going too. Like, no one's heading in a great direction. And you could at least argue Xbox is doing enough interesting things and experimental things where they should be around. Because I don't want Tencent to step in, or Apple, or Amazon to step in and be like, yeah, here we go, let's make our own system. I'm good, bro. I am okay. You know, Valve obviously being the only hope in all of that. But truly, I feel like we want Xbox to stick around. So that's good. And then, although I felt it was a safe assumption, software carrying forward, that's good to see. And so we'll see what the actual action is from Xbox. This is wordplay, to be fair. So what is the actual action from Xbox to get all these games to play anywhere? And is it kind of like I theorized, like, yeah, you're actually going to take your 360 games to your new next generation hardware. You're going to buy this new SKU, or it's going to be in Game Pass, or we're going to emulate it via AI, which is a whole other conversation. So they did talk about AI here, more so on what seemed to be the performance enhancing end is how I understood it. We will see, but there's a lot of ways this can sour you quickly. So just, I wouldn't get over the top hype yet. You know, we got to see how they're going to be taking these actions, but the initial promises look great to me. And so, ladies and gentlemen, let me know your thoughts on the future of Xbox down below. Other than that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.